But the details of this deal are unclear, and with a 60-day negotiation period, it also remains unclear if the deal will hold. For more on this, I'm joined by Randa, the Middle East Program Director at the Stimson Center, and Thomas Juneau, a Professor of Public and International Affairs at the University of Ottawa. Hello to you both. Glad to have your perspectives today. Thomas, I'm going to start with you. That big question, the likelihood that this deal is going to hold. Right now, knowing what little we know, how optimistic are you?
It really depends what your standard for success is. If your standard for success is, in a narrow sense, a sort of ceasefire holding, then yes, in the short term, I think that's likely. We need to understand that this is not a peace deal. This is not a deal that resolves the multiple deep issues, challenges, problems between the U.S. and Iran. This is basically a prolongation of the ceasefire and an agreement to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. And as your correspondent just said, this is going to be a slow and gradual process. It's not going to be overnight. So in that sense, yes, I think the deal can hold at least for now. But beyond the short term, as there are multiple unresolved issues between the two sides, as mistrust between the two sides is extremely high, especially if you add in the equation Israel and Lebanon, where nothing is resolved as well, then my optimism goes down very quickly. And I actually become quite skeptical and pessimistic that this is going to lead to better things down the road.
Randa, in terms of the issues that are not sorted, and they do seem to be quite a long list, what would you say are the ones that are most likely to jeopardize this agreement, such as it is?
I think the nuclear file, all the issues that are related to the nuclear file, I think what Mr. Trump just said in the interview that you aired, in the clip that you aired during his meeting with Mr. Macron, that Iran has committed to not developing a nuclear weapon. I think that's nothing new. We had that before, and that was also well understood. I think when it comes to enrichment levels, when it comes to what's going to happen to the highly enriched uranium that's already in possession of the Iranian, what's going to happen to the infrastructure, for enriching the centrifuge, what's going to happen to the ballistic missile program. The MOU does not mention, the Memorandum of Understanding does not mention the ballistic missile program. Iran's ballistic missile program does not mention Iran's support of proxies in the region, which is a big concern for Israel, but also for for other countries in the region. So these are very tough issues. And as Thomas said, there is already a war going on in Lebanon, and the Israeli Prime Minister today said he's not about to withdraw his forces from Lebanon, and the Americans say that he has the right to respond to any imminent danger or threat that can emanate in the future, which Israel has defined in very generous terms in the past in defining what an imminent threat is coming at it from Lebanon. So there are a lot of issues that need to be, in addition to the ones that are going to be negotiated between the United States and Iran, there are these other spoilers. The Israeli Prime Minister, Hezbollah, and the idea and the whole and the pushback that once they get into negotiating these tough issues, especially on the nuclear file, there will be pushback both in the United States and inside Iran on the kind of agreement that can emerge from these negotiations.
Thomas Juneau, do you think that there can be a deal if this conflict endures with Israel and Lebanon? I mean, there seems to still be fighting today, and there was a debate about the extent to which this was actually included in the deal. Could we have a sort of a partial peace? Is that conceivable?
A partial peace between the U.S. and Iran, or between Israel and Hezbollah, are two separate questions. But on between the U.S. and Iran, in the narrowest of narrow senses, I think, yes, if you define a very cold peace as no direct violence between the two, I think there is a scenario where we go back to that status quo. I think basically the two sides now agreed to what is in essence a prolongation of the ceasefire because they each had their own reasons to want the war to stop, because the war was being costly for them, even if for different reasons. I think there is a scenario ahead of us where the U.S. and Iran de facto agree not to resume open warfare. Every now and then, small peaks of violence, that's quite possible, but no resumption to full-out war. I think they can have a common interest in that. So if you define that in the sense of a very cold peace, yes, I think we can go back to that, which is more or less where we were before. The danger with that cold peace is that it acts in a very destabilizing way for the rest of the region, because if they do not confront each other directly, they will continue confronting each other indirectly in Lebanon and elsewhere.
Randa, I mean, the president is already out suggesting that this is a victory. And Tomas said a minute ago, where we started. If we look at the Trump administration's and Donald Trump's stated aims with this conflict, sort of fact check for me this claim that this has been a successful war from the point of view of the United States. Is that fair?
We have first to see the text of the memorandum to see whether it is a valid claim. And then we have to see where these negotiations, the next 60 days, which I doubt it's going to be only 60 days, will be extended, I think, for some time, where they are going to go. But Mr. Trump needs to claim a victory. He will claim a victory. He will create his own reality, as he has done in the past with the other wars, the 7-8 wars that he claims he has solved. And so that's going to be the narrative he's going to push forward with in the lead up to our November elections, and hoping that this gains traction. So, but I think time will tell whether this is going to lead to the kind of nuclear deal that's better than the previous one, the JCPOA, that was finalized in 2015, and whether this is going to again include these other issues that are important for the region, and that can be spoilers for future for peace, meaning the ballistic program and the proxies.
I should let the audience know and let you folks know as we are talking, there is news, and it is coming from an Iranian news agency, but saying explosions occurred in the Strait of Hormuz area, possibly linked to traffic management. So hard to know what to make of that and what that tells us about this moment and the uncertainty that hangs over all of it. One of the questions, Thomas, has been about Canada's potential contribution, if indeed there is a peace, particularly when it comes to the Strait of Hormuz. The Conservatives, something Mark Carney was talking today about how at the G7 meeting, there will be this question of how other countries can reinforce a potential peace. The Conservatives have been critical of what Canada could offer. Conservative MP Shuv Majumdar says Canada could have played a much stronger role in standing alongside allies over the course of the U.S. And Israel-Iran war. Let's listen to a bit of that.
I think that Canada could have played a much stronger role throughout the course of this conflict, standing alongside allies who are confronting the brutal tyranny of Tehran. What they have done across the Strait of Hormuz by mining it is an abhorrent action. Not only must it be demined in the waters of the Hormuz, but it also must be confronted at the United Nations. They've violated so many conventions over the course of these last 100 days, if not the half century that preceded that. Canada should be a powerful and strong voice, as it once was under Prime Minister Stephen Harper, in confronting the clerical military dictatorship of Iran.
Okay, so Toma, that's the Conservative perspective. What can we say about what Canada could or should be doing at this moment?
Well, what we're seeing now as various scenarios are being thought about in terms of what the rest of the international community, and by this we mean mostly the Europeans and other American allies, in terms of helping safeguard maritime security in the Persian Gulf, we're really seeing the limits of our capabilities here. A number of European countries, the UK, France, Italy, Germany have, for example, demining or maritime demining capabilities that can help in the weeks and months ahead. We don't really have anything at that level. During the war, we saw some European countries, the UK, France, and Italy, be quite active in supporting Gulf states, the UAE, Qatar in particular, in terms of counter-drone and counter-missile defenses. We don't really have capabilities at that level. That's really a missed opportunity because these European countries who were helpful with Gulf states won a fair bit of diplomatic capital by doing that. Moving ahead, we may take rhetorical positions. We may provide very limited niche capabilities in terms of intelligence, for example, but in practice, there's a very limited amount of material assets that we have that can play a role here. And I think there are lessons to be learned because there's a lot of lessons in terms of the future of warfare, protection of critical infrastructure, counter-drone warfare, missile defenses, and so on, that we really need to think hard about.
Randa, I mean, one of the clear messages from this conversation that we're having is that this may well not be over. But I wonder if we say that this might be at least another moment in this conflict where perhaps we see at least less fighting, what do we think we would say this war has changed fundamentally, geopolitically? What has come of this?
It has changed, particularly for the Gulf countries. It has changed their outlook toward the United States. It's now increasingly seen as an unreliable, unpredictable security partner. They are not going to abandon the U.S. security umbrella anytime soon, but you're going to see more movement on their part to start hedging their security partnerships, investing more in more independent air defense, capabilities. You are going to see more movement on their part toward groups, toward India, toward China, toward Turkey as security partners. At the same time, also Israel. And both Israel and Iran now are equally seen in the region as threats to be contended with. There are Abrahamic Accords, there are treaties between some Arab countries and Israel. These are here to stay. But more and more, the prevalent view is of an Israel that is led by a messianic leadership, a society that's not willing to make compromises toward peace with its neighborhood. Equally, Iran is viewed now as a threat, and is viewed as a threat that has been empowered by this war, that is emerging as more sure of its capabilities. And there is now, in a way, confusion in the region about what kind of Iranian regime will emerge eventually. Is it going to be a pragmatic regime? Is it going to be a hardline regime that's doubling down on its regional proxies and on its nuclear program? Or is it going to be a fragmented regime? It's a regime that needs now to prove its legitimacy internally, and it's facing enormous economic pressures going forward. And so it's going to be contested. And the fear that, again, one outcome of this is going to be a fragmented regime that can export instability to the neighborhood. This is the takeaway, at least in the region, from this war, and will have implications for security architecture, security partnerships going forward in the future.
Tama, I'm going to ask you to answer a difficult question quickly, which is unfair of me, but I wonder, Randa just laid out a perspective about the region, about the United States specifically. Obviously, this war with Iran comes actions around Venezuela, any number of other things, but I wonder if you think this specific action, how it has changed our understanding of the U.S. as a global actor.
I think that you have to take a few steps back and see it as part of a broader trend of the U.S. being perceived by its allies, by its partners, closer, less close, in the Gulf, in NATO, in Canada, as less reliable, as more dismissive of its traditional alliances. This is a trend that has been longstanding. It goes back to Trump 1, but even in between and before. I think, as Randa said, in the Gulf, there will be an intensification of a pre-existing trend to hedge. Gulf states will remain dependent on the U.S. as a guarantor of their security, in the same way that we in Canada will remain, whether we like it or not, very close to the U.S. We simply have no choice, but we are looking to diversify. That's not new from this war, but this war will basically continue to push us in that direction.
Okay. Thank you both so much for your perspective today. I appreciate it. Randa Saleem and Tama Juneau.